And we can now move to some interface settings. So if I go to the edit preferences and hover here over the interface, there is this little hidden thing called temporary windows. And if you expand this, you can choose if you want to render in image editor or in the new window, and by default it's set to new window, I think. So every time you press F12 to render, the new window will pop out. I don't like this. I like to render inside the Blender into the image editor wherever I am. So I switch this to image editor. So that's the one thing. And the other thing is in the key map and preferences, you might have see this hidden, so you just expand this, and here you can see extra shading pine menu items. By default this is disabled, so just enable this, and I will show you the difference. When I hover here and hold Z, you can see I can switch between the view modes like the solid, material preview, rendered, and stuff like that. But if I go to the preferences again and enable extra shading pie menu items, let me close this. By holding Z, you will see I have more options. So the standard options move to the left and right side of the pie menu, and up here you see toggle overlays. So this way you can quickly disable all the lines, all the gizmos, everything, and just see your scene. So that's very useful when you have a lot of like Boolean objects and stuff like that that gets in the way, or a lot of empties. So this is a quick preview, and then at the bottom I have toggle X-ray, and that's very useful to see through your mesh when you're modeling something a little bit more difficult. So I use this all the time. If you want to have it set up the same, go to the preferences, key map, and enable that extra pie menu items. And of course, one last thing, in the preferences and the system, there's cycles render device, and basically here you are choosing whether you're using CPU or GPU for the rendering. If you have NVIDIA card, you can switch to CUDA and support it with CPU. If you have RTX card, you can switch to Optics API, and if you have AMD, you can switch to OpenCL. So whatever you can see here available, you can use this. I use Optics because I have the RTX card available here. So that's just a side note, and that's the last thing I do in my preferences. So as you can see, my Blender setup is pretty vanilla. I like to keep it that way because when I show you how to do some of these things, I want my Blender to look as close to the default version as possible. But at the same time, some of these things are so useful, I just need to use them, and I want to show you how you can use them to speed up your workflow. And now, with that said, we are moving to add-ons.